Good morning and welcome to this weekly market update. Today is 23rd of April. What we'll do today is go over EURUSD, cable, dollar Swiss, euro sterling and gold and silver charts. Just to give some sort of weekly outlook into the week, what I think will be happening, key technical analysis. Won't be making any trade calls or recommendations. For any new followers, what we have on each chart is 3 moving averages. You can see the red one here is 55 simple, the purple moving average is 100 simple, and the gold is 200 simple moving average. Okay, so what do we have on this EURUSD chart? This is the weekly chart. As you can see on the weekly, what I'm really looking at is this weekly fib swing from this low here at around 1.26 to this recent fib here. As you can see in this weekly chart, we've had some great action at this 50% level. You can see it much clearer here. I'll just highlight a few of these candlesticks here. You can see 1 there, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 candlesticks there, which have pierced this 50% level. But we've had price come above and make a weekly candlestick close above this key 1 spot 30.54. Spoken about it many times before in these weekly videos. It's still holding very nicely. We didn't do a video last week, so I was away on vacation. But as you can see, this last week's weekly candlestick very bullish indeed. We had a nice pierce below this 50%, and we've bounced above and made a nice candlestick close above it. So you have to say that the odds are still towards the upside, unless we get any weekly candle close below this level. You just have to say that it's still in between this kind of range here, between the 1 spot 34 level and 1 spot 30.50. So it's a nice weekly range. Had no candlestick close above or below. But in terms of this week, you have to say the odds are towards the upside. And the first main resistance that I'm really interested in on this weekly is the 1 spot 30.85, and then you got the 100 SMA on the weekly, which is at 1 spot 35.43. Let's have a little look to the daily and see if we have any more direction. It's still very similar really. You can see last week, what do we have? Well, last couple of weeks we had all these candlesticks pierce below the level and failed to make a daily candlestick close below. Very nice action indeed. I mean, the only time where this fib hasn't really done what it's meant to is around here. As you can see, we had the daily candle close below, but it was a kind of a fake out really, as the next candle closed above. So that's where fibs can trick you a bit, but if you looked at the weekly, it still did what it was meant to do. But in terms of the daily, still you can see it's just kind of in between the range here, between the 100 and the 55, looking for a clear direction. The clear direction to the upside, we need to get a clear daily candlestick close above this 55. You can say this was one here. Friday's candlestick was a close above, so you still have to say the odds are towards the upside, but you can see we're coming below this level. So today's candlestick will be very interesting in terms of technical analysis, where this candle will close. The odds are for it still to go to the upside. This may just be a nice retracement today, but make sure that you watch the end of the day's close to see where this will close. If it closes above, then the odds are still towards this upside target of 1 spot 34.85. You can also see it's 200 SMA just above here at surprise bang on 135 handle. That's quite rare, that, so very interesting to keep an eye out there. But if it comes below this 100, you have to say that the odds are that we're going to get some buyers coming in at this 50% level, key level that I'm really interested in on this euro dollar chart. Okay, let's have a look at cable. In terms of the weekly, we've spoken about this numerous amount of times. There's lovely trendline support here, and we also have this key resistance zone here. The weekly, it's still acting in that zone. That's all I'm really focused on in terms of this weekly chart. And we spoke about this before, how the kind of 100 SMA was holding around here. We had this kind of cluster of moving averages here, the 55 and the 200, but we've now got a clear kind of break above that level, so you have to say the odds are really are towards the upside now in terms of this weekly chart. If we have a look on the daily, we spoke about this fib setup before, from the low from that trend line to that recent to that high there. And we've now got a very nice bounce a couple of weeks ago off of this 50% level, and that's now ripped to the upside, and it tested the resistance at the 0%, and we've now broken above it, so the odds are towards the target, towards that 123 extension. In terms of the recent swing, if we draw the low from there and then the high to up here, we also had a very nice bounce off the 50% level. I think I spoke about this a couple of weeks ago, and it's played out very nicely. We had a nice bounce off the 50%, and also that 55 and 200 day moving averages, also a very nice confidence zone there. We've got very nice buyers coming in. We've now broken that 0% line at the 1.6062. So I mean, in terms of the fibs on cable, they're kind of done and dusted really. Nothing really much of interest. In terms of resistance line, you can see this is the key resistance here. If you look to the left of this chart, I'll just highlight this for you. You can see a very nice resistance zone when that bounced off the 200 SMA there, but you can see now it's now bouncing off of the same level. So we're now getting a bit of a sell-off. So the odds for this week, where you have to say on cable, it looks like it wants to do a nice sort of healthy retracement. But let's say it does another 50% retrace, then that's the fib I'll be looking at. So if we do get a retrace and get any more buyers come in, then the 1.5976 should be a likely sort of buy area. But quite an interesting chart cable. It's been playing out very nicely in terms of the fibs. Very nicely indeed. Let's have a look at dollar Swiss on the weekly. Not too much interest really in terms of this weekly chart. It's just been basically just very choppy in between this 100 SMA and the 55 SMA on the weekly chart, so not a massive amount of interest. I mean, last week's candle was quite bearish engulfing in fact, so the odds for some sort of sell-off this week in terms of the weekly chart. On the daily, what do we have? A very nice trend line here. You can see from that low there to the lows around here, acting very nicely. And we also have a trend line resistance, so you can see it's kind of consolidating in between this nice triangle we have here. So in terms of kind of weekly outlook, all we should be looking for is some sort of clear direction, some sort of clear break that we will need in order to have some direction. So if we get a daily candlestick close below the trend line, then you have to say the odds will be towards this 200 SMA, which is at 0.8907. And if we get a candlestick break above and close, then the odds will be towards this 100 SMA here at 0.9227. Let's have a look at Euro Sterling. This will be the last of the forex pairs. In terms of the weekly, we spoke about this trend line before, which has now been broken. Very interesting that. Actually, no, yeah, it broke a couple of weeks ago, didn't it? Yeah, it broke a couple of weeks, but I remember now, we mentioned about this support level here, and this is still in play. So I'll just highlight this for you, where I drew the support line. Support was right there. And what level is that? 0.8167. You can now see it's testing right at this zone here. So keep that in mind. The odds are definitely towards some sort of bounce, but if we get a daily candlestick close below this level, then the next key support will be around here. So in terms of the weekly, that's all I'm really interested in. And where do we get that support? We've got that support level from around here. Okay, So that support is 0.77, but we're still miles away from that, so I wouldn't worry too much. But if we do get an aggressive sell-off, then that's where the next key support that people will be looking out for in their weekly chart. But in terms of euro sterling, it's all about this level for me. Even if you look at the daily, if we do get a bounce above, then this trendline support that may act as resistance will be interesting, and it will most probably coincide with this 55 day moving average. So, but in terms of euro sterling, it's testing a very key support level at the minute. So that'll be very interesting to see what happens this week in terms of that level. Okay, it's time for the forex. Let's have a look at gold chart. In terms of gold, you have to have this trendline support up. We've spoken about this many times now. And if we zoom in, what happened last week? So last week, not a lot of action really. We have a bit of a low wick on that candle, so you have to say the odds are still towards the upside. But until we get any weekly candlestick break of this trend line, break and close below, then the odds are still towards the upside, in my opinion. In terms of this weekly fib, from that low there, so let's draw the trend line, so it's right off there. Yeah, so that's the low and that's the high for the fib. You see it's reacting around the 61.8. It did break that 50%, and now that 50% level is now acting as support, as resistance. Sorry, and it's very choppy actually. Not very nice action in terms of the moving average. Because you see this 55 moving average has been acting so well, and now it's kind of chopping around this zone. But all I'd be really interested in is what happens at this trendline support and what happens at this 61.8 level. You see we've got a fake out there, a daily candlestick closed below, and then it bounced up and closed above it, so not massively technical. If you draw the recent fib swing from low to high, what's happening? Around a 61.8 again, so that's a key level. What will be happening in today's daily candlestick? Will it come up and pop and close above that 61.8? That's what I'd be looking for. But in terms of the moving averages, they're not really in play, but I mean personally I still think it's towards the upside. This trend line's been holding so well. Unless we get any real close below this trend line, then the odds will be towards the upside, and if it does bounce up, then the first key resistance in terms of moving averages will be this 100 SMA at 1674. Okay, that's all for the charts. Let's have a little look at the forex calendar for this week. So in terms of today, quite a quiet day. We've already had Chinese HSBC flash manufacturing PMI that came out slightly better than previous at 49.1. And we have some, well, we've already had, sorry, I'll just refresh this. We've already had some flash manufacturing and services PMI numbers out of France and Germany, quite a bit weaker than expected. So that will most probably be hampering euro dollar as we speak. The next ones are out at 9 o'clock. We have Eurozone flash manufacturing PMI and services PMI. On Tuesday, the main news is all about the UK public sector net borrowing out at 9:30, forecast at 15.6 billion, previous was 12.9 billion. And at the US at 3 o'clock with US consumer confidence forecast at 70.1, previously 70.2. And also at 3 o'clock with the US new home sales forecast at 321,000, previously was 313,000. And on Wednesday we have ECB President Draghi speaking at 8 AM, so that'll be very key. What will he be saying about interest rates and the LTRO that's currently going on? But some more big data out at 9:30 out of the UK. We have the preliminary GDP numbers quarter on quarter forecast at 0.1%, previously minus 0.3%. And at 1:30 UK time, we're out of the US with the core durable goods orders numbers month on month forecast at 0.6%. Previously was a very good number at 1.8, so we're expecting a contraction in those numbers. And to finish most people's trading day, we have FOMC statement, and also the FOMC economic projections and press conference out at 7 o'clock. On Thursday, what do we have? The big news at the day is US weekly jobless claims out at 1:30, forecast at 378,000, previously was 386,000. And at 3 o'clock with the US pending home sales, forecast at 1.4%, previously was minus 0.5%, so we're looking for a better number there. That'll be interesting to see. We have some Japanese data for any of you that trade the yen, but the main news really is the G7 meetings that are kind of very tensive, and they'll be happening all day, so watch out for any sort of comments that come out of those G7 meetings. But to finish off the week, we have a massive bit of data out of the US advanced GDP numbers quarter on quarter, forecast 2.6%. Previously was a very, very good number, that was 3%. So expect a slight contraction from the previous numbers, but still quite a big number out of the US there forecast. So make sure you keep an eye on that, because it will have, well, it should definitely have some sort of impact on the markets. Okay, that's all for today. Hope you've enjoyed that webinar and you found it very useful. I'll catch you next week. Have a great week trading. Take care.